Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome. How is everybody?
I am good. I'm trying to mute everything. I forgot I had those open.
Oh, no worries.
Hello.
I didn't hear anything, so we good.
Oh, good. I did. It was echoing all through the entrance, and I couldn't figure out where it was coming from.
Oh, okay.
I figured it out.
So we took a couple 2 weeks off, maybe.
A political break, I would call it.
Yeah, because we had some obviously Super Tuesday and things of that nature. There is primaries today, however, they're rather inconsequential at this point. So I'll catch up with them a little bit later, but I figured we'd go back to regularly scheduled programming today.
Awesome.
So, and we'll be continuing with the Masons. Freemasonry, right? Correct?
Yes. Yeah. I'm feeling great. Thanks, Linda. Yes, we're heading into the Freemasons and going to delve quite a bit deeper this time. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So, yeah, and like I said, after I will do a short catch up on the election results for the primaries today. I honestly have not looked yet. So I'd be surprised to both of us, but we know me. And during, I'll probably take a peek. So, yeah, but we're going to try and get through 2 tonight. So we'll get going right away, unless you have something to add. And then we'll try and get through 2 hours. So.
Oh, did we already do this episode? I thought this was the episode we missed. Gemstone has been here for every single one.
I wasn't sure either. That's why I looked at it and I was like, I don't know. So
okay, well then, sorry, then that's on me, and I sent you number 7 anyways. I can send you 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, I can see that. I think that's my bad.
No, you're totally fine.
Yep. No problem. Number 7, folks. Sorry.
All right. So I lied. Maitreya?
Gematria.
Okay.
Yeah. Or Maitreya. Sorry, Maitreya. I've got them all mixed up in my head now. Maitreya. So they're kind of the next step in the, because they're all kind of one. They evolve together. So this is the next step in the evolution of Freemasonry.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So yeah, we'll get going on that one. And yeah. Apparently you haven't done this one. Wait, what?
See, I didn't think so. I thought we had missed we needed to do hour 6 because the windstorm, and then we had the primary. It's number 7. My bad.
Yeah, it is number 7. Okay.
It is number 7. Okay. Sorry.
We'll get this right.
I should really pay attention before the stream starts, eh?
I mean, I could always go back and look, but we both know that I'm not responsible enough to do that. So
yeah, as responsible as I am going to look before the stream starts. So
right. I mean, I could just go watch the last episode and go from there, but that's probably just not going to happen.
Yeah, that's way too much effort.
So we'll just go from
We'll go
here
from
and
7. Yeah.
we'll deal with it. So um but yeah, and if you want to send me 8, I'll queue up 8, and then if we get through 7, we'll go
We
to
can
8.
do that. Yeah.
So
Awesome.
sounds good to me.
I'm ready when
So,
you are.
all right, let's get started.
I'm William Cooper, and you're listening to the Hour of the Time. Folks, something is wrong in America, no doubt about it. There's a new religion appearing. Many of you call it the New Age religion, and it appears to be the exact opposite of the Old Age religion, meaning the religion of the Jews and the Christians. It's not really that different. I've studied it. I've talked to people who practice it. They claim it's not a religion, but it is. Christ has ceased to become a man, the Son of God, the actual manifestation of God in the flesh on earth, and has become the consciousness, the Christ consciousness. And anyone can be Christ if they have this Christ consciousness in the New Age religion. Now, these are the two religions, the Christian religion and the Jewish religion, that set the United States on its course, because these religions taught that mankind had some basic human rights. They held that the family was the basic unit in all of the world. They believed in the right to private property. They believed in the unalienable, which is defined as being incapable of being surrendered, right to life. They held that each person had the right to worship their God, and they held that all had the right to freedom of association, as shall be so disclosed during this series. These positions were deemed to be self-evident by those who wrote the American Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and became the cornerstones of the American civilization. The term self-evident, folks, means that these human rights were not worthy of debate because they stood on their own simply because they were true. They could not be debated because they were creator endowed by God. Yet, folks, today these cornerstones of American life are no longer self-evident to many. They are being publicly discussed. People and organizations are now debating whether an individual has the basic human rights to life, liberty, and property. There's a great danger in this. Friedrich Wilhelm Nietzsche, a German philosopher and one of the teachers of many of the world's leading communist revolutionaries and international socialists, put the argument quite succinctly in this statement, quote, "I condemn Christianity. I raise against the Christian church the most terrible of all accusations that any accuser uttered. It is to me the highest conceivable corruption," unquote. Remember, the priests, the initiates of the mystery schools, believe that Christianity is a corruption of the mysteries, the worship of Lucifer, represented by the sun, the light, Osiris. Tex Mars, an author who has written in opposition to the New Age, wrote this about their hatred of the Christians, quote, "The New Age believer is told, you could be a god in the next instant if only those horrible Christians weren't around with their poisonous attitudes," unquote. That thought was illustrated by another of the important New Agers, David Spangler, who wrote this in his book entitled Reflections on the Christ. Quote, "We can take all the scriptures and all the teachings and all the tablets and all the laws and all the marshmallows and have a jolly good bonfire and marshmallow roast because that is all they are worth." Unquote. So the New Age, like the Masons, feel that Christianity is the enemy, a force to be countered, not by open debate, but by contempt and ridicule, and as shall be illustrated later, by even murder. And remember, the source of the New Age movement is the Order of the Freemasons. Other parties wish to join the debate. In 1911, the Socialist Party of Great Britain published a pamphlet entitled Socialism and Religion, in which they placed their position about religion into the arena. Quote, "It is therefore a profound truth that socialism is the natural enemy of religion. A Christian socialist is in fact an anti-socialist. Christianity is the antithesis of socialism." Unquote. So the socialist, the New Ager, and the Mason have declared war on the Christians. And as in every war, the enemy must be defeated even by bloodshed if necessary. This war has deep roots in history, and I will cover those roots so that you will understand it perfectly where this came from. This war is no different. Bloodshed is anticipated by all parties in the battle. Lavetti Lafferty and Bud Hollowell, two New Agers, started the discussion about how their religion sanctions the use of violence against the Christian community. They wrote the following in their book entitled The Eternal Dance, quote, "This is a time of opportunity for those who will take it," apparently meaning the New Agers, the initiates of the mystery religions, socialists. "For others," apparently the Christians, "if the earth is unsuitable for them, if they will not accept the New Age religion, they will go on to other worlds," unquote, which simply means they will be exterminated. You better listen to me, folks. I am a messenger, and my message is unmistakable, and it had better not fall upon deaf ears, for those deaf ears will be rendered dead in the coming New World Order. Another New Age spokesman, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the guru sought out by the rock and roll group known as the Beatles and others, has been quoted as saying, quote, "There has not been and there will not be a place for the unfit. The fit will lead, and if the unfit are not coming along, if they will not accept the New Age religion, there is no place for them. In the age of enlightenment, there is no place for ignorant people. Non-existence of the unfit has been the law of nature," unquote. Another example of New Age thinking on this vital issue came from a pamphlet available in a bookstore selling New Age material. It was published by something called the Guardian Action Publications of New Mexico, and it was entitled Cosmic Countdown. This pamphlet alleged that it had received these thoughts from something called higher intelligence, and it directed its attention to the hunger disease problem in the third world, and the pamphlet simply stated, quote, "The world should be forewarned to be on the lookout for diseases which have been suppressed for years, suddenly rearing their ugly heads and decimating populations already on the verge of starvation in the third world nations. Although these peoples will eventually be replaced by the new root race about to make its appearance in a newly cleansed world, nevertheless, for the moment, this is a tragedy," unquote. You see, they have made incredible admissions, but none of you are looking, none of you are reading, none of you are absorbing. In fact, most of you are so stupid that you think that the only thing you should read is what you personally believe in or agree with. How can you exist in this world ignorant of the opinions and the writings and the thoughts of everyone else, including your enemies? The words reveal an incredible scenario. You see, these people in the third world nations are going to be entirely replaced by what they call, quote, "a new root race," unquote. That eventuality will not be a tragedy. The tragedy is that these people are dying now due to starvation and disease, but when they die later or they're all gone and they're replaced by the new root race, that won't be a tragedy. The concept that a new race of people will inhabit the world in the New Age millennium has been expressed by other believers in the religion. Ruth Montgomery, previously mentioned, has written about that change. Quote, those who survive the shift will be a different type of people from those in physical form today, freed from strife and hatred, longing to be of service to the whole of mankind. The souls who helped to bring on the chaos of the present century, apparently the Christians and the Jews, will have passed into spirit to rethink their attitudes, unquote. To show that the New Agers are talking about the physical death of the enemy, one must only search the writings of other New Agers. Another believer to write on the subject of the destruction of those who will not accept the new religion was Ruth Montgomery. And she has been quoted as saying in a transcribed interview carried by a magazine called Magical Blend, quote, millions will survive and millions won't. Those who won't will go into the spirit state because there is truly no death, unquote. Estimates of the number to perish have been made by some New Agers. One who has made such an estimate is John Randolph Price, who was quoted by Tex Mars in his book about the New Age, and he said that, quote, John Randolph Price was told by his spirit guide that up to 2.5 billion might perish in the coming chaos, unquote. And we already know that the goal of the plan called Global 2000 is to deplete the population by 2 billion people by the year 2000. Now, that estimate is about half of the current world population, 2.5 billion. Another estimate of the number required to die because they will not accept the new religion was offered by the so-called Tibetan master, Dwal Khul, who has said in one of his channeling experiences that 1/3 of all humanity must die by the year 2000. That would be about 2 billion people, at least. Channeling is one of the strange activities occurring inside the New Age religion. I have witnessed this, and I can tell you most channelers are just fraudulent con artists who are taking the money of those who pay to hear this channeling from dead spirits or ancient teachers or other world spirits. Some of the believers claim that they have the ability to call forth the deceased spirit of someone who lived many years before. Quite often, these spirits claim to be the ascended masters, those who have gone on to discover the eternal truths of all creation. One such believer who claimed to be in touch with a master was Alice Bailey, previously mentioned. Her spirit called himself Dwal Khul, and she claimed he spoke through her saying, quote, death is not a disaster to be feared. The work of the destroyer is not really cruel or undesirable. Therefore, there is much destruction permitted by the custodians of the plan, and much evil turned into good, unquote. Now, just what the plan constituted was told to the world by Benjamin Krim, another New Age leader. He placed an advertisement in about 20 newspapers all over the world on April the 25th, it's April the 25th, 1982, that defined the term. The ad read in part, quote, what is the plan? It includes the installation of a new world government and new world religion under Maitreya, unquote. But perhaps the most startling example of the teachings of this new religion came from the pen of Barbara Marx Hubbard, one of their most articulate writers, and she wrote in her book entitled Happy Birthday, Planet Earth, quote, the choice is, do you wish to become a natural Christ, a universal human, or do you wish to die? People will either change or die. That is the choice, unquote. So the people of the world will be given a choice. They will choose to accept the new religion, or they will choose to die. The battle lines are drawn. Choices will have to be made. I have made my choice. What is yours? Some of the leading socialists of the past have shown that they too have chosen up sides. One such individual was Adolf Hitler, the head of the German government during World War II, who held no conviction that the murder of over 50 million people during that war was wrong. He considered himself to be an agent of this unseen God in reducing the population of people that he held to be undesirable. He wrote, quote, I have the right to exterminate millions of individuals of inferior races which multiply like vermin, unquote. And he did what he considered acceptable inside his religion. Those who did not believe in his new religion had no choice, and they perished. The evidence that Adolf Hitler was a New Ager.
Why is there always so much emphasis put on eliminating a race of people? Like, what is the benefit to eliminating? Are they just a threat? Are they?
It depends on the they. I mean, we know why they, being Israel, wants to exterminate Gaza and vice versa. When he's talking about they in the mysteries, it's not so much that they want to exterminate a particular race, so much as they want to exterminate the bulk of humanity because the world needs it to. So it's to save the world. It's not necessarily that, you know, the humanity is bad and we're going after a particular group. It's just anyone that's not an elite is sucking up space on Earth that could be going to them and the animals.
Okay. Because it always seems like a common theorem that we gotta get rid of this.
We got to kill
we
people.
we gotta we have to eliminate large amounts of people.
Yeah.
And I don't know, can't we all just coexist and deal with each other?
Well,
I mean, I know we can't. Like, it's not.
yeah, obviously, yeah. If we could, that would have been. This wouldn't be an issue. But yeah, no. Everyone has different reasons for why they want to get rid of people, and some people have specific numbers of amounts of people that need to go. Some people just say, you know, in generalities. Some people choose a race. But yeah, the common denominator is most of us have to go.
Some people, like Elon, want 10 times the population and multiple planets, you know? I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm starting to think Elon sees himself as the Lazarus Long, and if that's the case, he's planning on living thousands of years, and he'll see it all happen. So, if he's correct,
I think he's gonna live. I think he's gonna outlive mortality for sure.
yes, yeah,
And when you have the resources he has, then you can make things like that happen. But it I always take pause when somebody wants to eliminate an entire group of anybody. It's like,
yeah.
maybe not. Maybe we shouldn't do that. Like,
Well, I found it interesting. Christianity is one of the few religions. In fact, I believe it's the only religion that tells you not only to love your neighbor, and treat them as you would be treated, but it also says that you know, violence for violence sake is bad. There's a lot of religions out there that say love your neighbor as long as they're also one of us.
right.
So I always liked that. Yeah, that Christianity was the only one that said, you know what? If you want to love my God, love my God. If you want to love your God, you love your God. Just don't force anyone else to take your beliefs, and I'm not going to force anyone to take mine.
Yeah.
It's the only religion I can think of that doesn't have an outright a target, you know? I mean, like the devil is evil and sin is evil, but we're not going after any people.
Yeah.
You know, Christianity has never gone after, well, in the name of Christianity, yes, people have gone and killed people. I'll take that bit back. But the purpose of the Bible, if you read the Bible, it says nothing about killing off a certain group to make God happy. It's all about taking care of each other and ourselves.
Okay. No, I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting to think about it. Interesting thought process, because, you know, like there's been a lot of them through history that just want to eradicate people or remove this certain group, or, you know, blah blah blah. So
Yeah. It's yeah, I don't know. It always, that's one of the things that drew me to Christianity anyways, was just the fact that they're not they're not naming and shaming anyone, and they're not saying, you're doomed to hell forever because you're a bad person. They're saying the exact opposite. We are all sinful, and we are all gonna fall. But we are to do our best and to adhere to the 10 Commandments as best as we can. And God knows our heart. So when the judgment day comes, we'll be judged on that. So we don't have to go out and kill anyone. Yes, you're right. Gemstone saying they'll turn Earth into a slave colony right after they make a slave colony on Mars. And I really do. I think Elon's he sees himself as Lazarus Long, and he probably expects to be the longest living human, so that he can do all this space travel and planet development. Have we lost you?
Oh, I'm muted. So
I thought maybe.
So he hasn't come out and said it, but I have, and I understand that the things that he wants to accomplish or that he's allegedly going to accomplish are not possible with the time that he has available.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. So
Yep.
It's going to take a lot longer than the typical human lifespan to do a lot of the things that he wants to do. So
yeah, in the series, Lazarus Long was born. Oh gosh, he was either born just before World War II or just after. It's been a while. I can't remember. But he was still living a couple of thousand years in the future when people are living on Mars and Jupiter and, all that. So the character himself was the longest living human. And I don't think he even ever died in the series. So I think that's what Elon's aiming for.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll continue on. So
will be presented later in this series. Another of the leading spokesmen for the socialist position was George Bernard Shaw, a well-known writer during his day. He wrote a book entitled The Intelligent Woman's Guide to Socialism, in which he stated, quote, I also made it quite clear that socialism means equality of income or nothing, and under socialism you would not be allowed to be poor. You would be forcibly fed, clothed, lodged, taught, and employed, whether you like it or not, whether you're useful or not, even if it were discovered that you had not the character and industry enough to be worth all this trouble. You might be executed in a kindly manner, but whilst you were permitted to live, you would have to live well, unquote. Socialism is the greatest perversion, deception, and lie that has ever existed on the face of this earth, and has brought nothing but misery, death, poverty to people who have been subjected to its cruelties.
Like making the middle
Masonic
income
writer Albert Pike
disappear.
placed the Masonic order into the discussion.
Sorry. It's like getting the middle income families gone. Now we've got the poor and we've got the elite, and there's very little low income or middle income people anymore.
yeah, and it's the middle income, the middle class
Yeah.
seems like it is really important to having kind of a just society, because if you have poor, they're going to be taken advantage of by the rich. So like just naturally the rich are going to take advantage of those who are in that poor bracket.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to have any kind of equality or reasonableness, you have to have a middle class that can,
A large middle class,
yeah,
a
yeah,
reasoning,
yeah,
because that's the problem too. In a functioning society, there is a small group of elites that kind
mhm,
of run the overall macro stuff. There is the poor, which tends to be also less educated, although educated in this day and age is not education at all. Um,
yeah,
but as well as teenagers would fit into that at the same time. So they would be doing the minimum wage jobs, starter jobs to get into the workforce. But the bulk of the society has to be middle class, which means that they're somewhat educated, somewhat trained in various trades, even if it's, a jack of all trades. I can do a little bit of everything.
right,
But they need to be able to use logic and reasoning, and they need to have sense. Well, they need to have common sense and a sense of justice. And that large middle class is what keeps the other two from going overboard.
right, and they they kind of conceptually are taking it slowly down. They're taking away logic and understanding and problem solving and
Yep,
you can't fix shit by yourself anymore, like that kind of stuff. Like they're taking
exactly.
away those skill sets that aren't beneficial to their cause, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
really frustrating.
anything that makes it so that we can take care of ourselves is bad
Yeah.
from this religion perspective, from this group perspective.
Mhm.
Because they need lots of dumb slaves who can
Right.
do the manual craft that they don't want to do, but that aren't smart enough to form up and get themselves something better.
Yeah.
So they've been doing a damn good job of doing that. Well, I've been around 44 years, and it's been happening since I've been here.
Right. They seem to be pretty effective at it. And I don't know, it's like personal antidote of trying to fix something and you just can't do it anymore. Like I can't get the parts. I can't get the I've been bitching to Dazzler about it for like a week. You can't get the parts, you can't do this, you can't do that. Like
Hmm.
I can buy a brand new one for $4 less than I can fix the one that I have. So it's like why the hell would I take my time, you know?
Yeah.
Um
Well, and that's the disposable lifestyle that
yeah,
they've made us accustomed to. And when it is just easier to go buy a new one than to fix the one you have, that's what people are going to do. And
right.
unfortunately, that just leaves us all reliant on them. We've got at least one, if not two generations, young generations that have absolutely no idea how to hammer a nail into a board properly.
Right.
You know? And that's insane. When the internet shuts off, what are they going to do? And that's when these guys are going to swoop in and say, "Oh, we got the answers. We'll save you.
Right.
Just come to our
Right.
15-minute cities and let us do everything
Yeah.
while
Um
you do the work."
they're building a 15-minute city outside of Australia or outside of
Yes,
Sydney in Australia.
yes.
Um
We've got one somewhere in BC. I was just reading about it. Can't remember where. But there's one coming up. I think it might be on the islands. Um,
huh,
but they're coming. Uh, I'll bet you anything, Lahaina. What's not going to be scooped up and sold off as prime real estate for people who can afford prime real estate. The rest of
Oprah.
it's just gonna, yeah. The rest of it's going to be 15-minute city where everyone has to rely on the city to do anything from go and pee in the morning to brushing your teeth to feeding yourself and whether or not you can walk the dog.
I mean, they did a hell of a job selling it. Like, let's be real.
Yes.
Like,
I mean, he's calling it Plan 2000, but it wasn't even, it was supposed to happen prior to 2000. They just couldn't do it. So the
right,
fact that we're at, they're, what are they calling now? Plan 2040. They just added another decade. So now we're looking at 2040 is when the miracle happens
right.
from their
Yeah.
perspective. So, yeah, we're definitely holding our own and we're holding them off. We just gotta keep holding.
It's just it's hard to fight against, because when it comes down to it, all we want to do is just be left alone. Leave us the hell alone. Let us do our shit. Let us do it how we want to. Let me fix my stuff, and like, but again, it's just not. It's not feasible. Like, I've been going back and forth with Tazza on this. Like, it's just not feasible. For 2 days of my life, and it's $4 more expensive for me to waste 2 days of my life. Like, that just seems ridiculous, because it is.
Yeah.
And that's the way more and more things are. Like, you can't fix it. Like, I print stuff and fix random shit all the time, but I have the skill set to be able to do stuff like that too. So not everybody does.
Not everyone does. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, even just I may not really know much about electricity or plumbing, but I've got enough common sense and the ability to use logic that I could find some old books. I've actually got homesteading books. So I've got carpentry books and basic plumbing, basic electrical. In a pinch, I could take care of myself. And a lot of people these days can't.
No, they can't. And it's absolutely terrifying for the future, because we're going to have a lot of people that cannot do anything to fix anything or make anything. Or what's up, Waxing?
Oh, hey, Waxing. And hi, Jacob, over on Rumble.
Hey, what's up, Jacob? And Gemstone, Linda, Tazzer, everybody else. I mean, there's just, I don't know. It's like I said, they're incredibly effective at what they're doing, but what they're doing is incredibly damaging. So
yeah, and we've got like I said, it's at least the youngest two generations are on board with 15-minute cities. They think that this is the way to go. They don't understand that there is a way. It's a harder way, but there is a way to survive where you don't need to have everything given to you. But they don't care.
Right.
Why put effort into anything when it can be given to you?
Right. Well, it's just convenience. Like, why am I gonna take my time and effort when I can just say,
why order the part? Why wait the week for it to get here? And why do all the little things? And you could just go down to the corner store, pick up the new machine itself, and be done.
Yeah, it's insane, and it's not going to change anytime soon. It's probably going to get worse.
See, the plan is to lock you in a room, chained to a computer, and brainwashed into thinking you're happy there, and that's exactly it. They're aiming for the Matrix. They just need the cattle would be a good word, Gemstone. But they just need their slaves, people who can push the buttons and fix the machine if it breaks.
And realistically, they're making it damn easy to just sit here and not move.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
because they want you to.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't have to. I can get everything here. Like, it's delivered in 4 hours with Amazon, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like, it's, I don't know. It's not a good thing. And you have people so bought into it that it's just going to make life so much better. And it's not.
Yeah. And that COVID did really great for that too, is, got everyone ordering online, everything. And it made a whole lot of businesses that never would have done deliveries start doing deliveries.
Right.
So it's just made a bunch more people more in need of services.
Yeah.
So,
just made it so it's more convenient. And
they're going to convenient us right into our graves.
Yep. They convenience the hell out of us.
Yeah. And if you don't like it, well, we've got maids over here.
Yeah. Which is insane.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They've adjusted who's eligible again.
Oh.
Yeah. It's not good.
More inclusive really now than ever?
more inclusive now than ever, and it's definitely not an adult only.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So, but hey, we may not be able to talk about that soon, or at least I may not be able to talk about that soon if this last bill goes through. So
Yeah.
I may need you guys to start putting stuff on the commissary for me. So if I disappear, you guys just start phoning the local jails in BC, Canada. Find me.
You're not going anywhere. They can't silence us all, damn it.
Well, yeah, there you go.
Maybe you Canadians, but
Oh, I'll just hike into the bush and start hollering from the mountaintops until they go live with the Bigfoot. We've got tons of them in BC.
that's awesome. But yeah, I mean, it's not going to be a comfortable existence. That's for damn sure. Seems like it right now, but it's not going to be fun in the long term. So
no, and don't be fooled when it looks like they're starting to roll back on some of this stuff. Some of the craziest stuff. They start going, okay, well maybe that's too much. Don't fall for it. They're not giving up. They're just easing off enough to keep you happy, happy cattle. And they'll keep pushing the agenda forward once you've settled back into being comfortable again.
And it's just like, there's not really any alternative, like there's nothing I can do to combat this. Like it's, like what the hell am I supposed to do?
We're not supposed to be able to do anything, but just what we're doing right now, that's something. It's something. And the more of us individually across the world who are aware of what's going on and who are taking preventative measures and trying to spread awareness, we're the ones that are going to, make sure that they don't win in the end.
Right.
So.
And that's about all we can do is advocate awareness, talk about it, get people interested and engaged in it, and point out what the hell is actually going on. I think that's the only option that we really have. So
that's why this is so important, because it shows you just all the other religions, well, not all of them, all the mystery religions, they're all basically around the theory that you are your own God, or you can be God. So nothing else matters.
Right.
And that's so untrue. And that nothing really matters attitude is what's got us to the point where we're at today, where people are so violently angry about tiny, meaningless little things.
It's insane. Like it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to think that this kind of shit makes that big of a difference, or the littlest things have impact and shouldn't. They probably should not be this. I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but they shouldn't be this impactful or have this much bearing on the conversation, no matter who you like or who you voted for or agree with or
exactly
whatever. It really shouldn't matter that much, but it seems to matter more and more. So but yeah. All right, we'll get back to it so we don't go.
And when he wrote this in his book Morals and Dogma, quote, "It is not true to say that one man, however little, must not be sacrificed to another, however great, to a majority or to all men. That is not only a fallacy, but a most dangerous one. Often one man and many men must be sacrificed to the ordinary sense of the term, to the interest of the many. The interest and even the life of one man must often be sacrificed to the interest and welfare of his country," unquote. The religious view is that the sacrifice of one life for the interest of the many is murder. And those who believe in the God of the Bible are told not to commit this act. The commandment against this practice is contained in Exodus 20, verse 13 of the Old Testament, and in Matthew 5, verse 21 in the New, and is simply expressed in these simple words, quote, "Thou shalt not kill," unquote. The principle is easy to understand. No person has the right to take the life of another. This understanding is nearly worldwide. There are, of course, cultures that have determined that human sacrifice, cannibalism, and murder are acceptable forms of behavior, but these are rare in the history of man. But here we are being exposed to a whole new religious view, one growing daily in size and stature that openly advocates the wholesale slaughter of entire races of people. Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Bavarian branch of the Illuminati, has also endorsed this new conviction that murder was not improper by including it in the initiation ceremony into the order. He has his initiator tell the initiate, quote, "Behold our secret. If in order to destroy all Christianity, all religion, we have pretended to have the sole true religion, remember that the end justifies the means, and that the wise ought to take all the means to do good which the wicked take to do evil." Unquote. The initiate was told that he may use whatever means, murder included, to achieve the goals of the association that he was joining, and that the major goal of the Illuminati was the destruction of all religion, including Christianity. That meant that if Christians physically stood in the way, they would be removed by simply murdering them. Weishaupt even went so far as to say that anyone not willing to take the life of another was unfit to join the Illuminati. He wrote the following in a letter to a fellow member in 1778, quote, "No man is fit for our order who is not ready to go to every length," unquote. Weishaupt wrote that again, this time using different words, quote, "This can be done in no other way but by secret associations, which will by degrees and in silence possess themselves of the government of the states and make use of those means for this purpose which the wicked use for attaining base ends," unquote. Now Weishaupt, folks, was aware of the enormous power of government, and he desired its power for his members. He committed his organization to its infiltration. Then he committed it to unspeakable purposes, anything that would further the goal of the Illuminati. He even went on to grant permission to his members to distort the truth by lying if it would further their goals. He wrote this, quote, "There must not a single purpose ever come in sight that may betray our aims against religion and the state. One must speak sometimes one way and sometimes another, but so as never to contradict ourselves, and so that with respect to our true way of thinking, we may be impenetrable," unquote. And you wonder why politicians continually lie and continually break their promises. And no matter who you elect, Republican or Democrat, it doesn't make any difference. Perhaps a perfect example of an oath that these initiates take somewhere along the road to the pinnacle inside the secret society was given in a book written by George Orwell entitled 1984. Mr. Orwell has an initiate into a secret society called the Brotherhood in his story ask these questions. Quote, "Are you prepared to give your life? Are you prepared to commit murder? Are you prepared to commit acts of sabotage which may cause the death of hundreds of innocent people? Are you prepared to betray your country to foreign powers? Are you prepared to cheat, to forge, to blackmail, to corrupt the minds of children, to distribute habit-forming drugs, to encourage prostitution, to disseminate venereal diseases, to do anything which is likely to cause demoralization and weaken the power of the people? Are you prepared to commit suicide if and when we order you to do so?" This, folks, is an example of the philosophy that the ends justify the means. The initiate should do as he was required as long as the act benefited the brotherhood. There is no morality under such an oath. So murder of the unfit, those unwilling to adopt the new religion, will be acceptable, and those who do the annihilating are to feel no remorse. In the view of the New Age religion, the murderers have served mankind well. But this callous disregard for the right to life of every human on the face of the earth has been predicted before in the New Testament. John was moved to write in John chapter 6, verse 12, quote, "Yea, the time cometh, that whosoever killeth you will think that he doeth God service," unquote. The New World Order, ladies and gentlemen, will sail in on a sea of blood. We have to take a short break now, folks. Don't go away. I'll be right back after this short pause. Well, let's continue here. The New Age religion, folks, is going to have a worldwide leader, a charismatic political and religious leader that they call Lord Maitreya. At least so far, that's who they call him, or that's what they call him. This individual, as far as I know, has not made his public appearance yet, but the New Agers claim that he is on the earth at the present time. They claim that he came to live with the Asian community in East London, England, in July 1977 by descending from his ancient retreat in the Himalaya mountains along the border of India and Tibet. They further believe that his imminent emergence into full public view is assured. They also claim that this individual is the one that the Christians call Christ, the Jews call the Messiah, the Buddhists call the fifth Buddha, the Hindus call Krishna, and the Muslims call the Imam Mahdi. In other words, all of the major religions of the world are awaiting the arrival of this one individual. It is their claim that this one individual living now in London is the one expected by all of these religions. However, when we search London with a fine-tooth comb, we can find no trace of any living individual named Maitreya or fitting this description, or recognized as this religious leader. Isn't that strange? And they say that he is on the earth now, patiently waiting for the appointed time to reveal his existence to the peoples of the world. They say that he will apparently assume the leadership of all of these religions, and when he does, he will create a one-world religion. The New Agers have written that in the esoteric tradition previously defined as being intended for or understood by only a chosen few as an inner group of disciples or initiates, in other words, the esoteric means hidden. They claim that the word Christ is not the name of an individual, but the name of an office or function within the spiritual hierarchy of masters. They claim that the masters are a group of perfected men who have guided human evolution from behind the scenes for centuries, and they believe that this Lord Maitreya is that Christ. Now, Manly P. Hall has written of this individual by identifying him as, quote, the way, the truth, and the life, which coming to every life redeems all who accept it, unquote. Tex Mars has quoted this individual as saying, quote, my army is ready for battle, my masters of wisdom and myself at the head. That battle will be fought for the continuance of man on this earth. Rest assured that my army shall triumph, unquote. Well, it appears that the battle to be fought between the followers of Lord Maitreya and the rest of humanity is still in the future. But at least one of the participants has an army already prepared. How about you? One who claims to have seen the birth in a vision of someone who seems to fulfill the requirements of this Maitreya was astrologer Jean Dixon. Her major claim to being a prophet is her prediction, reportedly made before the event of the assassination of President John Kennedy in 1963. However, her credentials were dealt a serious blow in 1968 when she also prophesied that the Soviet Union would be the first to put a man on the moon. Another of her prophecies was that the Republican Party would be victorious in 1968. And it was with the election of Richard Nixon, a Republican. But she also predicted that within the following decade, 1970 to 1979, the two-party system as we have known it will vanish from the American scene. She further predicted that Richard M. Nixon had excellent vibrations for the good of America and would serve the country well. So you can see that she is a very accurate person from which to judge the course of the future. If you want to know the truth, folks, I am the most accurate prophet of future events in history. In history. Those who question her inability to correctly predict that America, not the Soviet Union, would become the first to place a man on the moon, and that the two-party system has not vanished from the scene, and that President Nixon apparently did not have good vibrations for this nation and would later be removed from office by the event commonly referred to as Watergate, can only presume that she must have been given inside information about the assassination of President Kennedy. And that would account for her knowing, at least in that event, the true future. Secondly, one can only wonder why this non-prophet should be listened to about anything after her appalling record on prophecies, but there is reason to believe that she might have been asked to write an account of this vision of the important birth by the New Age religion, because they wanted the official imprimatur of someone commonly referred to as a prophet. In other words, folks, her prophecy might have been written to legitimize his claim to be a man-god, so that when this individual made his public appearance himself, the public would marvel at the fact that his birth had fulfilled a prophecy. But in any event, Ruth Montgomery wrote a book about her entitled The Gift of Prophecy, in which she wrote about the very revealing and intriguing vision that Jean Dixon allegedly had. Quote, "The vision, which Jean considers the most significant and soul-stirring of her life, occurred on February the 5th, 1962. She saw the brightest sun she had ever seen." Isn't it funny how that sun always pops into this stuff? Now remember that reference to the sun, folks. "Stepping out of the brightness were a pharaoh and Queen Nefertiti." Remember here that these two individuals were Egyptians. Now this will become significant later on. In fact, it's already significant if you've been listening to this show. "The couple thrust forth a baby as if offering it to the entire world." Now another interpretation, because they sprang from the sun, could be that this is Osiris and Isis and the child is Horus, and that is exactly the esoteric real interpretation, although Jeannie Dixon never said this. Jean looked at the baby and then said, according to the author, quote, "I knew here is the beginning of wisdom," unquote. Remember what I told you? Osiris is the doctrine, Isis is the church, the child Horus is the body of illumined initiates. So what Ruth Montgomery wrote can be summarized as follows. A sun deity gives the world a child from Egypt who possesses enormous wisdom, and this event allegedly took place on February the 5th, 1962. The interpretation of these symbols have already been discussed and will continue to be discussed during this series, and the significance will be plain to all. Jean then says, quote, "A child born somewhere in the Middle East shortly after 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on February the 5th, 1962, will revolutionize the world. Before the close of the century, he will bring together all mankind in one all-embracing faith."
Oops.
Mankind will begin to feel the great force of this man in the early 1980s, and during the subsequent 10 years, the world as we know it will be reshaped into one without wars and suffering. His power will grow greatly until 1999, and this year is extremely significant, as will also be discussed, at which time the peoples of this earth will probably discover the full meaning of the vision, unquote. So according to this vision, a child born on February the 5th, 1962, will grow up to bring a one-world religion onto the face of the earth, and his efforts will be successful in 1999. The New York Times newspaper, folks, ran 3 consecutive articles on the conjunction of 5 planets, the sun, the moon, and an invisible body that astrologers call T2, starting on February the 4th, 1962. The first article stated that the various bodies moved into rough alignment in the constellation Capricorn at 7:05 a.m. New York Times. A Capricorn, remember, is the goat. In history, the goat was the goat of Mendes, or the ram. And the newspaper article also says that they would remain in that alignment until 7:17 a.m. New York time Monday. The goat of Mendes, the ram, is also another word or another name for Lucifer, Satan. However, the article went on to say that most of the people in India became alarmed because most astrologers were making predictions of disasters. There were a few astrologers who were predicting good for the world as a result of this alignment, but few Indians appeared to be paying them much heed. Now couple that with Jean Dixon's prediction that the child was born on February the 5th, 1962, midpoint in this alignment. And what do you get? They're going to great pains to prepare the world for something. Astronomers did not consider the event to be rare, however, and the article went on to report that the same configuration had occurred several times in the past. The last time being in April 1821, and then it occurred twice. The article reported that Dr. Kenneth L. Franklin of the Museum of Natural History, Hayden Planetarium in New York, had commented that year does not seem to be a year of any remembered disasters. He was then quoted as saying, and that year isn't famous for anything, as far as I know. Dr. Franklin also commented on the body the astrologers call Ketu. He speculated that it may be some sort of astrological addition used to make everything come out right. He then added that he believed Ketu to be the invisible planet that is frequently taken into account in astrological reckonings, but that he had no idea how it was possible to keep track of something that no one could see, and as far as he knew, didn't even exist. The Times carried another article the next day, Monday, February the 5th, 1962, the date that this supposed child was born, and it repeated the concern of the Hindu astrologers. In fact, that headline read, "Hindu astrologers still say it's doomsday," and the subheadline read, "Peaceful beginning of planetary event is viewed gravely." Now, the third article in the series ran on Tuesday, February 6th, 1962, and carried the headline, quote, "Doomsday in India, uneventful," unquote. The article reported that the Indian astrologers had predicted a variety of disasters, earthquakes, tidal waves, devastating fires, and warfare, to name but a few, but that none of these events had occurred. Furthermore, the article reported that Hindu priests had claimed that the reason nothing had happened was because their prayers to their god had been answered. But folks, none of these three articles mentioned the birth of anyone on these 3 days. Furthermore, none but a few astrologers had believed that something good was going to happen, and that only a few in India had even listened to them. Only Jean Dixon, another astrologer, had seen a vision of something beneficial, in this case, the birth of a baby full of wisdom at about the midpoint of the 3-day affair. One can only wonder if once again she missed the mark and was involved in another error, or if she was intentionally made to set up the world to welcome someone named Lord Maitreya. In any event, these people claim that the Lord Maitreya will appear shortly to the entire world and start everyone off on a road to a one-world religion. Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, in her book entitled The Secret Doctrine, called him, quote, "the dragon of wisdom," unquote. So it appears that the one call that Jean Dixon made that appears to match other comments is her statement that the baby she saw in her vision was full of wisdom. If the baby she claimed to have seen in her vision was Lord Maitreya, then she was right, because others have claimed that Lord Maitreya is full of wisdom. However, there is still reason to believe that she was given inside information by some New Agers who wanted to have this Lord's birth prophesied so that when he did surface, the New Agers could claim that his birth had been a fulfilled prophecy. So the world awaits the visible appearance of Lord Maitreya. Ladies and gentlemen, dear listeners, so that you would realize that I'm not making any of this up, I took last night's program and tonight's program verbatim from the introduction all the way through chapter 3 of a book entitled The New World Order by my good friend A. Ralph Epperson. Again, the title of the book is The New World Order by A. Ralph Epperson, and you can order that book in any good bookstore. If you can't find it in your area, contact us and we will make arrangements with Mr. Epperson to be able to furnish that book to you.
Is this the end of
if
this
you would like to purchase it?
episode? Or?
I also recommend that you
believe
purchase
so.
my book, Behold
Okay.
a Pale Horse. It's a handbook for what.
Yeah, it looks like he's trying to
Yeah.
sell stuff. So
Wrap it up.
we'll- Yeah, we'll move on to.
So yeah, it's too bad no one showed up to fit that Matria bill, which is unfortunate. But considering that alignment happens a lot more often than they would like you to think, perhaps that Matria is still waiting to be birthed because they haven't done what they were supposed to do.
So we could still be waiting on it technically.
He could still, yeah, we could still be waiting for his birth technically, because if she's right, if her predictions are correct, that is. I'm not holding my breath, but because it's taken them as long as it has, and they're now looking at 2040. We're not there yet. We can hold it off even longer. I'm sure that they can say the same thing, that it wasn't the right time. So
right.
It'll come at one of these events.
And I mean, predictions are great, but eventually,
they have to be proved out.
They either have to be right or they're forever going to be wrong. So
that's an interesting thing. There's in one part of the Bible, oh geez, I can't remember if it was Isaiah or Jeremiah, but one of them, they're both prophets. One of them prophesied about a leader who would come 150 years later, and God even gave him the name Cyrus as the name of this leader who would show up in 150 years. And 150 years later, to the day, there was a leader named Cyrus, and he did come and combat and allow the Jews to rebuild Jerusalem. So there's a prophecy that was claimed, and they had to wait quite a while to have it fulfilled, but it was actually fulfilled. So yeah, I always like it when little historical things like that actually prove out true.
Come through.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot, makes it a lot easier to believe the rest of what a person is prophesying.
Yeah. It's just try not to get it wrong, because then you lose every bit of credibility. But usually people are smart enough to at least make things way past when they're dead.
Yeah, super, super vague. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It even says in the Bible, you will not know the time or the hour.
Right.
Paraphrasing, but if you hear someone saying, oh look, it's God, it's the second coming, you can guarantee yourself that's not it. You should turn in the other direction.
Yep.
So yeah, when their prophets keep prophesying and keep failing, at times I'm surprised that it's still as strong as it is, the beliefs in this system.
Right. And you're always going to have somebody that's going to fall for it eventually. So
yeah, I guess, yeah.
There, I'll move ahead so we don't get a second. Blah blah blah. But
yeah, we don't need to hear the sirens again.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, all right. So I don't know what this word is. Ecumenism.
Yeah.
Do you
Ecumenism. There we go.
Do you know what it means at all, or
haven't the slightest? I mean, I'm from my understanding, I think we're as you can see, we're going to get into some of the other religions that may still be in existence today that are branches of.
Okay.
So that's my guess, but it's been a while since I've seen this series.
Okay, no worries. We'll find out together.
Yeah, and yes, Bobby, Ecom. It is definitely coming.
On that note, We'll continue.
That's in another episode, JK.
Good evening, folks, and once again, welcome to the Hour of the Time. I'm William Cooper. Now, folks, the Dallas Morning News on October 1st, 1989, published this story. Anglican leader calls for unity under Pope. The byline is Associated Press. Rome, Anglican leader Archbishop Robert Runcie called Saturday for all Christians to accept the Roman Catholic Pope as a common leader presiding in love. For the Universal Church, I renew the plea, he said. Could not all Christians come to reconsider the kind of primacy the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, exercised within the early church? Again, folks, that was in the Dallas Morning News, October 1st,
So that's what it
1989.
is.
This story appeared in the Bakersfield Californian, August 27th, 1989.
It's the taking of
Baptist
all
and
Christian
Catholic
denominations
theologians
and taking of all the different Christian denominations and turning them into one world Christianity. So it's the one world church.
Okay.
But it's specifically here interdenominationalism. It's a concept or principle that Christians who belong to different Christian denominations should work together to develop closer relationships among their churches and promote Christian unity. So it's the one world church. Let's get all Christians in and pull those Protestants in with the Catholics, and then we're going to get everyone happy, and we'll all go to church on the same day, and we'll all believe the same thing, and happy, happy, joy, joy.
And then when you're not looking, they're just gonna, yep, I get it. All right, we'll continue.
Theologians find common ground. Associated Press, New York. Southern Baptists and Roman Catholics, the nation's two largest denominations, generally have been regarded as doctrinally far apart, but their scholars find they basically agree. The 163-page report is seen as the most full-scale mutual examination of respective positions of the two traditions. Achieving it was an unprecedented experience for Southern Baptists, commonly averse to ecumenical affairs. The talks, sponsored by the Catholic Bishops' Committee on Ecumenical and Interreligious Affairs and the Southern Baptist Department of Interfaith Witness, involved 18 meetings between 1978 and 1988. Again, that appeared in the Bakersfield, California, on August 27th, 1989. Now, I want you to listen to me very carefully during this broadcast, for the message tonight is extremely important. And understand that I am not attacking Catholics or anyone else. I am merely giving you the results of our research, and sometimes the results of this research is disturbing. It shows how we've been misled and deceived over hundreds and sometimes thousands of years. You see, folks, more wars have been fought and more blood has been shed in the name of religion than any other cause, perhaps all other causes. Countless millions have been slaughtered in the name of God, Allah, Buddha, Muhammad, Christ for thousands of years. Christian killing Jew, Jew hating Muslim, the Muslim against the Hindu, Christian fighting Christian, Shiite versus Sunni, Sikh against Hindu. Endless rivers of blood supposedly shed to rid the world of evil men and make way for peace. And of course, it never happens. And that's what they say about this new world order, that it's going to rid the world of evil men and make way for 1,000 years of peace. Well, is it possible for people of varied faiths and cultures to live at peace in this world? When one considers the fragmentation and division, even among Christians, or the never-ending conflict between Palestinian and Jew, prospects for peace seem very, very dim. Some, aware of the dark record of history, would abolish all religion. Some would combine all religion, as is the intent in the New World Order, and anyone who refused will simply be exterminated. Today, something unmatched in history is taking place. Leading statesmen and religious leaders are proposing a new world order, a plan that many sincerely believe can bring peace on earth. A unity is envisioned that will transcend instinctive barriers that have long separated cultures and religions. Significant progress toward a new world order is seen in the spirit of ecumenism, or togetherness, now being urged by prominent religious leaders and being brought to reality, to fruition by the World Council of Churches. In the ecumenical plan, basic theological or ideological differences are set aside, while emphasis is instead placed upon those elements common to most religions. And I can tell you that the New World religion will be a religion that serves man, because man is to become God in the New World Order. And the religion will change with the needs of man. Could the long desired universal peace be just around the corner? Could this succeed? Is it actually possible for men to forge a lasting peace on the anvil of compromise? Or could it be that we are naively forging not a new world order, but rather the one world order of apocalyptic prophecy? Or is it all an invention of the mind of man throughout the ages to manipulate large masses and populations of people? I make no judgment, and I do not try to answer all of these questions. You must do that in your own mind. But I must ask those questions, for many of you have never even thought to ask them. While controversial, folks, it is not the purpose of this program, The Hour of the Time, to disparage or attack the honest convictions of any sincere persons, whatever their politic or faith, for I am a true constitutionalist, and I believe that we each have the right to believe whatever we wish, no matter who likes it or dislikes it, and worship at the altar of whichever God we choose, no matter who likes it or who dislikes it. It happens to be one of the precepts of living in freedom. You must understand that. No one's right to believe what they want or practice the religion that they want can be hindered until the practice of that religion or the activation of those beliefs infringe upon the freedom of someone else. Now, I sincerely, in my heart and in my soul, believe this. Without this belief, man cannot live in freedom and must be subjected to slavery, and any intelligent, free-thinking person can quickly make that connection. That is why, even if you do not like the ravings of the Nazi speaker standing on the street corner, he must be allowed to stand and rave. And if you wish to listen, that is your business. If you wish to close your ears and walk away, that also is your business. But when you shut him up, you shut yourself up, no matter who you are or what it is that you say. For what we do to one, we do to all. Therefore, understand, this is a program bringing you information and we hope education, and it is not designed to attack anyone, but merely to shine some light in the dark corners of history where light has not been found before. You see, our purpose is to bring out facts and principles which have a bearing upon coming events. For those of you who may not realize it, this is not a religious show. This is not a religious show. This is a show that is designed to educate, illuminate, if you will, and that's very ironic because we are illuminating those who call themselves illumined, who have been causing us misery for thousands of years. We're trying to reveal the hidden agenda behind the New World Order, and along with it, the ecumenical movement that almost no one dares to discuss, which is a part of the bringing about of the New World Order. But you see, folks, these issues must be freely discussed, no matter who you are or what you believe. For those who know that history repeats, and those who ignore the lessons of history are doomed to repeat the history. As Winston Churchill once observed, folks, the farther backward you can look, the farther forward you can see. And that is really the secret why my predictions have been so accurate that at this moment, I am the most successful and accurate prophet on the face of this earth. But I'm not really a prophet, I'm a messenger. And they're not prophecy that I give you, they're predictions based upon actual study, research of history, and of the plan of those who call themselves the guardians of the secrets of the ages, the practicers of that religion called Mystery Babylon. And it is real, and it doesn't matter if you believe in any of this or not. If the practitioners believe it, it will affect you, especially if they hold powerful positions in the world. And I can assure you that they do. So this is not a religious program, folks. It just happens to be true that the New World Order is founded upon the religious history of the past. And it is all about religion, as you will soon see. When Jesus revealed to his disciples the fate of Jerusalem and the scenes of the second advent, he foretold also the experience of his people from the time when he would be taken from them until his return in power and glory for their deliverance. This is what the Bible says. In a few brief utterances of awful significance, Jesus foretold the portion which the rulers of this world would mete out to the church of God in Matthew chapter 24, verse 9, verse 21, and verse 22. Now, the reason I am quoting this is because if what is happening is being brought about by religious history, then we must understand the religious history and the books and the chapters and the verses that this religious history is based upon. For whatever belief is driving the minds of the men that are bringing about the New World Order and the minds of the men who are fighting the New World Order, it must be understood by all the rest of us who don't understand any of this, or we are surely lost. The history of the early church testified to the fulfillment of Jesus's words. As the fires of persecution were kindled, Christians were stripped of their possessions and driven from their homes. Great numbers sealed their testimony with their blood. Noble and slave, rich and poor, it didn't matter, learned and ignorant were alike slain without mercy. And unless what is coming is stopped, this will repeat itself. These persecutions, beginning under Nero, the emperor of Rome, AD 55 to 68, about the time of the martyrdom of Paul, continued with greater or less fury for centuries. Christians were falsely accused of the most dreadful crimes and declared to be the cause of all the calamities, famine, pestilence, and earthquake. They were condemned as rebels against the empire, as enemies of religion, and pests to society. Great numbers were thrown to wild beasts or burned alive in the amphitheaters. Some were crucified. Others were covered with the skins of wild animals and thrust into the arena to be torn by dogs. And vast multitudes assembled to enjoy these sights and greeted their dying agonies with laughter and applause. For in that day, it was known as the Great Roman Circus, the football, the Super Bowl of that era. Because they were hunted like beasts of prey, early Christians were forced to seek concealment in desolate and solitary places. Beneath the hills outside the city of Rome, long galleries were tunneled through earth and rock. A dark and intricate network of passages extended for miles beyond the city walls. In these underground retreats, the followers of Christ buried their dead. when the life-giver shall return to awaken those who fought the good fight, many a martyr for Christ's sake will come forth from those gloomy catacombs. In vain were Satan's or Lucifer's efforts to destroy the Church of Christ by violence. You see, God's workmen were slain, but his work went steadily forward. Said a Christian, quote, "You may torment, afflict, and vex us. The more we are mowed down, the more we spring up again. The blood of Christians is seed," unquote. Tertullian, in his Apology, paragraph 50, "Thousands were imprisoned and slain, but others sprang up to fill their place." Now the great adversary, who Christians believe is Satan, also known as Lucifer, but whom the mystery schools believe is Jehovah or Yahweh. The great adversary endeavored to gain by artifice what he had failed to secure by force. Persecution ceased, and in its place were substituted the dangerous allurements of temporal prosperity and worldly honor. For if they could not stamp out the Christians by violence, by killing them, by crucifying them, by throwing them to the lions and to the dogs and to the gladiators, if they could not get rid of them in that manner, and if the empire was threatened by them, then there had to be a way to save the Roman Empire, to save the emperor from that pestilence known as Christianity. Idolaters were led to receive a part of the Christian faith while they rejected other essential truths. They professed to accept Jesus as the Son of God and to believe in his death and resurrection, but they had no conviction of sin and felt no need of repentance or of a change of heart. And with some concessions on their part, they proposed that Christians should make concessions, that all might unite on the platform of belief in Christ. Now the church was in fearful peril. Prison, torture, fire, and sword were blessings in comparison with this. Some of the Christians stood firm, declaring that they could make no compromise. Others were in favor of yielding or modifying some features of their faith and uniting with those who accepted a part of Christianity, urging that this might be the means of their full conversion. And that was a time of deep anguish for the faithful followers of Christ, according to the written history of the Christian religion. This compromise between paganism and Christianity resulted in the development of the man of sin foretold in prophecy as opposing and exalting himself above God. The Apostle Paul, in his second letter to the Thessalonians, foretold the great apostasy. Quote, "That day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he, as God, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God," unquote. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3 and 4, and that prophecy has come true. As man stands in the temple of the body today and declares himself to be God. And furthermore, the apostle warned his brethren that the mystery of iniquity doth already work. And what is the mystery of iniquity? It is the mystery religion of Babylon, the worship of the heavens, the Osirian cycle, of which the sun is the symbol of the intellect. Even at that early date, he saw creeping into the church errors that would prepare the way for the development of that gigantic system of false religion, a masterpiece of Satan's power, a monument of his efforts to seat himself upon the throne and rule the earth according to his will. The nominal conversion of the Roman Emperor Constantine in the early part of the 4th century caused great rejoicing, and the world, cloaked with a form of righteousness, walked into the church. Paganism, while appearing to be vanquished, became the conqueror. Pagan doctrines, ceremonies, and superstitions were incorporated into the faith and worship of the professed followers of Christ, and the 10 Commandments were changed to permit idols in the church. and other changes were made. You see, the day of rest was changed from the seventh day to the first day. Why? Because the first day was the date that the pagan religion worshipped the sun, Osiris, the light, Lucifer, the intellect. And so the pure and simple teachings of Christ were corrupted beyond recognition. As Christians consented to lower their standards, a union was formed between Christianity and paganism. Though the worshippers of idols professed to be converted, they united with the church, still clinging to their idolatry, only changing the objects of their worship to images of Jesus and even of Mary and the saints. But they still worshipped the same gods, and they always have. If you look at an aerial view of the Vatican, you will see that the outer courtyard is a round temple of the sun, exactly as the Druids and the Celts built, and that in the center of this temple to the sun, to Osiris, stands the symbol of the lost word of Freemasonry, the phallus, the generative force, the penis of Osiris, the obelisk. You see, folks, the Roman Empire never fell. It just became the Catholic Church. And the Roman emperor merely changed his name from emperor to pope. Now, for those of you who may think that I'm crazy and that I've lost my mind, I'm going to read you verbatim from a book entitled Dungeon, Fire, and Sword. It is the complete history of the Knights Templar in the Crusades, written by John J. Robinson, author of Born in Blood. And I'm going to start at the third paragraph on page 414 in the chapter entitled Jesus Wept, 1292 to 1305. That's a date. Those are dates, folks. In London, Edward sent for the master of the Knights Templar in England, Brian de Jay. He told the master of his plans to chastise the upstart William Wallace in Scotland and ask that the Templar Knights go with him to fight for England. The Templar master saw no barrier to committing his knights to a totally secular war that had nothing to do with religion or the true cross. It had been years since the fighting men of the temple had had anyone to fight. The calls for men and money no longer came from the headquarters in the East. They had no need for them. No monarch they knew in Europe was going to go on a crusade, if even the Pope should call it, which he wouldn't, because the Pope had something much more important on his mind. Boniface VIII had come up with a way to increase the papal treasury, a way that could come only once in 100 years. The following year of 1299 marked the turn of a century, and Boniface would turn the usual secular celebration into a jubilee of joy for all Christians. Now there would be new pathways to the total remission of sins, much easier than going off on crusade. Full absolution was offered to any pilgrim who would come to Rome for 15 days with his offering for the church, and thus he could fill his coffers. Even at his most optimistic, the Pope had not foreseen the flood of pilgrims that would bring new prosperity to Rome. The local merchants and innkeepers were delighted with the business generated by almost 2 million pilgrims. 2 priests stood all day and night behind the altar at the Church of St. Paul, using rakes to drag away the steady stream of gold and silver offerings placed there by pilgrims who pushed their way through the mob to leave their gifts. Boniface VIII was ecstatic. He remembered the words said to him as the papal crown had been placed on his head. Quote, "Take the tiara and know that thou art the father of princes and kings, the ruler of the world, the vicar on earth of our Savior Jesus Christ." Unquote. Now he indeed felt like the ruler of the world as he staged a regal pageant. He put on the dress and the insignia of the ancient Roman emperors and went out into the streets with 2 swords held high in front of him, indicating his supreme authority over both the secular and the spiritual worlds, with heralds crying out, quote, "Behold, I am Caesar," unquote. And this is just one example, because all through history, the popes have, on occasion, made public admittance of the fact that Rome just became the church. Displayed on the walls of the Vatican is the double-headed eagle, the insignia of only one man who has ever lived, the Emperor of Rome. Now, so that I may not be accused of invention, folks, everything that I'm giving you in this broadcast is coming right out of the writings of the historians of the Catholic Church, of the Protestant Church, of the Roman Empire, of the Knights Templar, and many others. You see, I'm not inventing any of this. It happens to be historical fact. And if you have eyes and can see, the emperor, now the pope, to gain converts from heathenism, unsound doctrines, superstitious rites, and the adoration of images and relics were gradually introduced into Christian worship. The decree of a general council, the Second Council of Nice, AD 787, finally established this system of Christian idolatry. To complete the sacrilegious work, Rome presumed to erase the second commandment, forbidding image worship, from the law of God, and to divide the 10th commandment to preserve the number. According to Christian historians in the Protestant Church, Satan tampered with the 4th commandment also, and purposed to set aside the ancient Sabbath, the day which God had blessed and sanctified, in Genesis chapter 2, verse 2 and 3. And in its stead to exalt the festival observed by the heathen as the venerable day of the sun. This change was not at first attempted openly. In the first centuries, the true Sabbath had been kept by all Christians. They were jealous for the honor of God, and they zealously guarded the sacredness of its precepts. But with great subtlety, Satan worked through his agents to bring about his object. Now, don't go away, folks. We've got to take a short break. We'll be right back after this short pause. Early in the 4th century, the Emperor Constantine issued a decree making Sunday a public festival throughout the Roman Empire. The day of the sun was reverenced by his pagan subjects and was honored by Christians. It was the emperor's policy to unite the conflicting interests of heathenism and Christianity to save the Roman Empire. He was urged to do this by the bishops of the church, who perceived that if the same day was observed by both Christians and the heathen, it would promote the nominal acceptance of Christianity by pagans and thus advance the power and glory of the church. But while most Christians were gradually led to regard Sunday as possessing a degree of sacredness, some still held the true Sabbath holy, and they continued to observe it in obedience to the 4th commandment. Now they believed that Satan had led the Jews, before the advent of Christ, to load down the Sabbath with the most rigorous exactions, making its observance a burden. He cast contempt upon it as a Jewish institution until finally the pagan Sunday came to be honored as a divine institution, while the Bible Sabbath was pronounced a relic of Judaism and its observers were at last declared to be accursed. And the outcome of this is that the Jews have been persecuted throughout history. They have become the scapegoat that you learned about in an earlier broadcast. The spirit of concession to paganism opened the way for a still further disregard of heaven's authority. The visible head of the church, the Pope, came to be almost universally acknowledged as the vice-regent of God on earth, and he was endowed with authority over church and state. More than this, the Pope appropriated the very titles of deity. He styled himself, quote, Lord God the Pope, unquote, assumed infallibility, and demanded that all men pay him homage. Faith was transferred from Christ, the true foundation of the Christian church, to the Pope of Rome. Instead of trusting in Christ for forgiveness of sins and for eternal salvation, people looked to the Pope and to the priests and prelates to whom he delegated authority. They were taught that the Pope was their earthly mediator, and that none could approach God except through him, and further, that he stood in the place of God to them, and was therefore to be implicitly obeyed. A deviation from his requirements was cause for the severest punishment to be visited upon the bodies and souls of the offenders. Through this error, the people were turned from God to fallible, erring men. Blasphemous titles claimed for the Pope have been embellished and enlarged over the centuries, but a few of these boastful claims appear in an ecclesiastical Roman Catholic dictionary. I'm taking this right out of a Roman Catholic dictionary by Lucius Ferraris, entitled Prompta Bibliotheca Canonica, Volume 6, pages 438, 442, article Pope, the Catholic Encyclopedia 1913 edition. Volume 6, page 48, speaks of this book as a veritable encyclopedia of religious knowledge and a precious mine of information. Those are the words of the Vatican. Quote, "The Pope is of so great dignity and so exalted that he is not a mere man, but as it were God and the vicar of God." Unquote. Remember, the Roman emperors were deified. Quote, "Hence the Pope is crowned with a triple crown as king of heaven and of earth and of the lower regions." Unquote. That is an exact word-for-word description of Osiris. Quote, "So that if it were possible that the angels might err in the faith or might think contrary to the faith, they could be judged and excommunicated by the Pope." Unquote. Quote, "The Pope is, as it were, God on earth, sole sovereign of the faithful of Christ, chief King of kings, having plenitude of power, to whom has been entrusted by the omnipotent God direction, not only of the earthly, but also of the heavenly kingdom." Unquote. If that's not blasphemy, according to the definition, then I don't know what is, folks. Quote, "The Pope can modify divine law, and since his power is not of man, but of God." Unquote. The Pope can modify divine law? Well, you see that he did. He changed the day of rest, dictated by God, from the seventh day to the first day, and he changed the 10 Commandments to allow the worship of idols.
Okay, so this part seems like I need more explanation, Digger.
All right. Well, there once was a man named Saul. He was
Okay.
he was a Jew. He was a ruler, and at a certain point during his rule, he went on the road and began to kill Christians. All Christians. Got to kill them all. Now, while he was on the road killing Christians, all Christians everywhere, he ran into this dude called Jesus, and they had a bit of a talk, see. And after the talk, Jesus said, "Saul, your new name is Paul. Go forth." Now I'm being a little flippant and funny, but basically, Apostle Paul, who wrote quite a few of the books in the Bible, started out killing Christians, and he met Jesus, and he became understood, and he changed his ways. Unfortunately, near the end of his life, he and Emperor Constantine, they were friendly, and he talked Constantine into getting baptized and becoming Christian, which Constantine did. He didn't believe it, so it's not like it actually meant anything. But Paul thought, it means something. Paul took it for what he said it was. Constantine stopped being emperor and became the first pope, and Paul eventually passed Constantine, and then the popes who followed slowly merged pagan belief systems into the Catholic Church. A little bit further on down the way, they decided that Sunday was that they were going to change the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday. And they even say in their own paperwork to this day, they're saying this was not ordained by God. So-and-so decided it this time, blah, blah, blah. But for sense of ease, to get more pagans into the religion, let's just make Sunday the Sabbath. And there's an awful lot of things that make up the Catholic religion that are very pagan based, that go back to Isis and Osiris. It's very weird just how much paganism made it into what was supposed to be the true Christian belief. So at this point, I mean, he had mentioned emperors were, or at least Constantine, the Pope, became the sole conduit through which a person could speak to God.
Okay.
Which gave him a lot of power in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while there, the British monarch was the same thing, was underneath the Pope, and people could only go through him, and he could only go through the Pope, and the Pope could still only get to God. That's the only person in the world. And it was the same with Japanese until we dropped the nukes. I was just having this conversation yesterday. Until we dropped the nukes, they their emperor had never, his feet had never touched ground. They literally thought he was the human embodiment of God. And that's the same for many, many different royal or controlling figures in the different countries. So at one point, they were all the conduits to God. Henry VIII screwed that up when he decided he wanted a divorce, and the Pope said no. And he said, well, screw you. And he started the English church and decided that he was the new Pope. So
okay.
Different times in history, it's been changed. It's been changed up. But for a very, very long time, no one could talk to God except through the Pope. And that's why the Crusades, people were going and killing for thousands, well, not thousands, but hundreds of years. They're killing each other in the name of God. And then all of a sudden there's this Pope, and he says, well, you know, you could do that, or you could pilgrimage over to Rome and throw some money in the tithing, and that'll cover it instead. So you don't have to go and kill people and potentially be killed or get sick or blah, blah, blah. Just come over here, throw some money in the pot, and you're good.
So that's when it became a political position for the most part, maybe?
Yeah, it honestly, it was a political position, in my opinion, right from Constantine, because I don't think Constantine believed in the baptism. I think he was doing it to win over a certain section of the populace, which is why he and the following popes allowed the pagan belief system to merge so much, because they didn't really believe in Christianity. It was just a good way to control that part of the population.
Right. Well, that's always been part of my contention, is that there's some degree of population control with everything, you know, with religion. But that makes sense if that's the case.
The pagan religions are the Mystery Babylon religions. So all the little going to church on Sunday instead of Saturday, and the different, we can pray to the saints, and we can only talk to God through the Pope at a different time. That's all pagan. That's all pagan belief systems that have been woven into Christianity. So one of the main things for me that made me choose the denomination I chose was simply, when you read the 10 Commandments, the fourth commandment starts with the word remember and follows it up with the Sabbath and keep it holy. So he said remember because he knew that people were going to forget, and that people were going to change the day and try and, sully the real Sabbath by changing it to a different day. And that's, in my opinion, that's why he says, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. The Sabbath is sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. And it's only paganism that turned it into Sunday. I see a lot of writing. There we go. Yeah, Jesus had already Saul was a Pharisee, so he was a Jew. He learned at the feet of one of the other high up muckety mucks, tribe of Benjamin, which is one of the original tribes. Yeah, Constantine, was he that much further? Well, who was it that took over the church from Paul then, JK? Sorry, I'm wrong, and that's totally cool. Just please let me know.
No, you're totally fine.
No,
I'm learning.
JKD Buck, I've got my history, my dates a little bit backwards because Constantine wasn't till the 4th century. So when Paul passed, the Christian religion did continue on, but even before he passed, there was already some pagan stuff trying to creep in, because by that point, Gentiles were being brought into Christianity, and Gentiles were, for the most part, pagan, right? Because Gentiles were not Jewish, and the only other thing would be the pagans with all these mystery religions.
So they're the bad guys?
The pagan religion is the Mystery Babylon religion. And that's what bled into Christianity to create Catholicism. Okay. I'm not going to say who's good, who's bad, who's right, who's wrong. I know, in my opinion, but I don't want to argue with all the other denominations about whether or not Catholics is right. In my opinion, it got usurped by paganism almost immediately from the get-go. But they claim to be the true source of Christianity. So I don't want to open up that can.
No, I meant bad guys in the context of, like, so if they're the Mystery Babylon, like, I thought that basically that wasn't the accurate or true, and that's why, right?
Well, we got to remember whose perspective we're looking at. Okay. From my perspective as a Christian, there is only one true God, and Jesus is our intercessor in that, like, we can pray to God. We don't need anyone else. But when it comes time, Jesus, because he died for us and rose again, he has covered the sins of those who believe, who are true Christians. And those are going to be the ones that go to heaven. From the perspective of the Mystery Babylon people, the Mystery Babylon religions they go by so many different names throughout the years. That's part of what makes it so hidden in plain sight. So Mystery Babylon is that's pagan. So when people talk in history of the pagan religions, that's these guys, the Mystery Babylon. Okay. So from their perspective, their God, or they can become their own God. So the one true God doesn't exist. And it really doesn't matter if they say that they're Christian, and then they can blend in the pagan belief systems with the Christianity, because it doesn't really matter, because the only real God is themselves. So they make it up as they go along. And that's the flippant version of the Mystery Babylon.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But it also goes by the name Satanism, Luciferianism. There are so many different names: socialism, communism, fascism. They all are just different names of the same Mystery Babylon belief system. Okay.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah. And they all get the same end results. The masses are slaves to the small elite minority.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Taking it in. All right.
No worries. Yeah, no worries.
We'll continue moving forward on that one.
But the doctrine of papal supremacy is directly opposed to the teachings of any scripture that I am able to find. Quote, "Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve," quote, unquote. That's in Luke chapter 4, verse 8. God has never given a hint in his word that he appointed any man but Christ to be the head of the church. The Bible exalts God and places finite men in their true position. The Pope has no power over Christ's church except by usurpation, and that's true only if you are a Christian. If you are a Jew, if you are a Muslim, if you are a Buddhist, none of that is true, is it? By the 6th century, folks, the papacy was firmly established. Its seat of power was fixed in the imperial city, and the Bishop of Rome was declared to be the head over the entire church. Pagan Rome had given place to papal Rome. The ascension of the Roman Church to power marked the beginning of the Dark Ages. As her power increased, the darkness of superstition and error deepened. Those were days of pearl for the Church of Christ. Faithful standard bearers were few. At times, it seemed that error and superstition would wholly prevail, and true religion would be banished from the earth. The gospel was lost sight of, and the forms of religion were multiplied. People were taught not only to look to the Pope as their mediator, but to trust to works of their own to atone for sin. Long pilgrimages, acts of penance, the worship of relics, the erection of churches, shrines, and altars, the payment of large sums to the church, these and many similar acts were enjoined to appease the wrath of God or to secure his favor. As if God were like men, to be angered at trifles or pacified by gifts or acts of penance, and even then the church still worshipped the old gods. For in dismantling churches for renovation throughout Europe, without exception, and the older the church, the more likely it was to be true, enshrined within the altar, out of sight of the priests and the worshippers, were found stone penises, symbols of the lost word of Freemasonry, the phallus of Osiris, the generative force of the pagan religion of the worship of the sun, the light, Lucifer, the intellect. This is historic fact. This is not invention, but fact. About the close of the 8th century, Papists put forth the claim that in the first ages of the church, the bishops of Rome had possessed the same spiritual power which they now assumed. To establish this claim, ancient writings were forged by monks, and it has been proven that they were forged. Decrees of councils before unheard of were discovered, establishing the universal supremacy of the Pope from the earliest times, and a church that had rejected the truth greedily accepted these deceptions. Another step in papal assumption was taken when in the 11th century Pope Gregory VII proclaimed the perfection of the Roman Church. Among the propositions which he put forth was one declaring that the Church had never erred, nor would it ever err according to the Scriptures. But I wonder what they told Galileo when they imprisoned him for being right, that the earth revolved around the sun, and that the earth was not the center of the universe, and that the universe did not revolve around the earth. I wonder what they told Galileo. How did they justify being right when they were obviously wrong? And not only with Galileo, but Giordano Bruno and many others. Many others, as a matter of fact, many of whom were burned at the stake for daring to disagree with what was then considered to be politically correct. For many of them had discovered scientific truths, and when they espoused these truths, were declared to be heretics and were burned at the stake because the Pope declared these truths to be falsehoods. And that, folks, was the birth of the doctrine known as political correctness. And you see it reappearing now, where truths are again declared to be false because they are not politically correct. What are you going to accept in this world? Now, once again, I want to tell you, we're not attacking anyone. I care not what you believe. I care not what altar you worship at, for I am a true constitutionalist. It makes no difference to any of you what my religion is, although I will freely tell you that I attempt in my daily life to follow the true words of Christ, not the doctrine or the preachings of any church or any evangelist or any book, but those words attributed to Christ and only to Christ. And as the rock upon which those words stand, the 10 Commandments as given to Moses by God. That is the sum total of my religion, of my beliefs, of what I practice in my daily life. I'm not asking you to do that at all, but I am asking everyone to quit accepting what they are told, to begin an honest, individual, personal search for the truth, for we can no longer live in deception. We can no longer live the lies of the past. Great change lies ahead of us, folks. Change will come whether we want it or not, for that is the way of the world and the way of the universe. And if we are still living in lies and deceptions and manipulations, then that change will be for the bad, just as it has always been throughout the history of the world, and blood will flow and people will suffer, all in the name, once again, of religion. And I, for one, am sick of it. Sick of it. We must discover the truth, and we must lead our lives by the truth, and we must take the truth into the future, and we must determine the future from the truth and nothing else. Nothing else. For if we do not, those who have decided that they are the only truly mature minds, and thus the only ones capable of rule, because the rest of us do not use our intelligence, and thus are beasts of burden and stakes on the table by choice and consent, no better than animals who do not have intelligence. They have determined that they are going to shackle us once again in slavery, because we cannot control ourselves, or rule ourselves, or live by the truth. This is what they have determined, right or wrong, whether you believe them or whether you believe that they know what they claim that they know or not. It is what they have determined, and I assure you they are in control right now. Right now. Right this moment. And in this country, their headquarters is in the temple without windows, exactly 13 blocks from the White House, the headquarters of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. Now, when the Pope declared that the church had never erred, nor would it ever err, according to the scriptures, the scriptural proofs did not accompany the assertion. Next, the proud pontiff claimed the power to depose emperors and declared that no sentence which he pronounced could be reversed by anyone, but that it was his prerogative to reverse the decisions of all others. The advancing centuries witnessed a constant increase of error in the doctrines put forth from Rome. Even before the establishment of the papacy, the teachings of heathen philosophers had received attention and exerted an influence in the church. Prominent among these was the belief in man's natural immortality and his consciousness in death. This doctrine laid the foundation upon which Rome established the invocation of saints and the adoration of the Virgin Mary. From this sprang also the heresy of eternal torment for the finally impenitent, which was early incorporated into the papal faith. And thus, once again, the worship of Osiris and Mary and the child Horus, disguised under different names, emerged as a religion from the veil out into the open. The only thing that has changed is the names. Then the way was prepared for the introduction of still another invention of paganism, which Rome named purgatory and employed to terrify the superstitious multitudes. By this heresy is affirmed the existence of a place of torment, in which the souls of such as have not merited eternal damnation are to suffer punishment for their sins, and from which, when freed from impurity, they are admitted to heaven. The scriptural ordinance of the Lord's Supper was supplanted by the idolatrous sacrifice of the Mass. Papist priests pretended by their senseless mummery to convert the simple bread and wine into the actual body and blood of Christ. And those are the exact words, body and blood of Christ, written by Cardinal Wiseman. The real presence of the body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ in the Blessed Eucharist, proved from Scripture, Lecture 8, Section 3, Paragraph 26, but no Scripture is quoted. With blasphemous presumption, they openly claimed the power of creating God, the creator of all things. All Christians were required on pain of death to avow their faith in this horrible, heaven-insulting heresy, and multitudes who refused were given to the flames, were burned at the stake. Is it any wonder that the invisible college, the worshippers of Mystery Babylon, those who call themselves the guardians of the secrets of the ages, hate Christianity? Still another fabrication was needed to enable Rome to profit by the fears and vices of her adherents, and this was supplied by the doctrine of indulgences. Full remission of sins, past, present, and future, and release from all the pains and penalties incurred, were promised to those who would enlist in the pontiff's wars to extend his temporal dominion, to punish his enemies, or to exterminate those who dared deny his spiritual supremacy. The people were taught that by the payment of money to the church they might free themselves from sin and release the souls of their deceased friends who were confined in the tormenting flames. By such means Rome filled her coffers and sustained the magnificence, luxury, and vice of the pretended representatives of him who had not where to lay his head. And the old Roman Empire flourished under the guise of the Vatican, the papacy, the Catholic Church. In the 13th century was established that most terrible of all the engines of the papacy, the Inquisition. The Prince of Darkness worked through the leaders of the papal hierarchy in their secret councils. Satan and his angels controlled the minds of evil men who invented tortures too horrible to appear to human eyes. Babylon the Great was drunken with the blood of the saints. The mangled forms of millions of martyrs cried to God for vengeance upon that apostate power. This is word to word from history, folks. Popery became the world's despot. Kings and emperors bowed to the decrees of the Roman pontiff. The destinies of men, both for time and for eternity, seemed under his control. For hundreds of years, the doctrines of Rome had been extensively and implicitly received, its rites reverently performed, and its festivals observed. Its clergy were honored and liberally sustained, but the noon of the papacy was the midnight of the world. That was written by J.A. Wiley in the History of Protestantism. Now, Protestantism is not lily white either. I use that term lily white because throughout history it's been used to describe good, when in fact, in many instances, there's nothing good about it whatsoever. Protestantism, folks, began in the Reformation. When Martin Luther rebelled against the Pope. But did you know that Martin Luther used as his personal seal the rose and the cross, revealing that he himself was an initiate of the mystery school, the ancient religion of Babylon. You see, I'm not attacking anyone, and I'm not putting anyone on a pedestal. I'm not tearing down.
That's a key point to remember.
I have a
Mhm.
question.
Okay.
So I've heard, and I don't know how truthful it is, but Rome was a punishment. Rome was like a punishment from God. They were given everything and basically fucked it up, and the downfall was because it was a punishment. Is there any accuracy to that, or is that not?
I've never heard that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
I've
because obviously,
never heard that, but
because obviously Rome was the most powerful place maybe in all of history, and then for it just to be gone, kind of.
Well, and to be fair, it's not gone. Rome is still there. It's still their own country. The papal law rules that country, and they still
Yeah.
have a lot of power in the whole world. Heck, this the Pope we have right now, first Jesuit Pope ever, which is a thing in and of itself. Um, but he is trying to bring about, or at least it looks to me like he's trying to bring about this exact thing, the one world church, one world worship. Um, I know he's trying to frame it, the Sunday law, which is everyone has to have a day of rest on Sunday. Um, and
Okay.
they're gonna couch it in terms of climate change. We're gonna save the environment because the whole world's gonna shut down one day a week, every day a week.
For
So
climate
that's
worship.
kind of like the Catholics will still be doing it because it's their Sabbath, and a lot of Protestant religions, Protestant Christians already go to school or church on Sunday anyways. A lot of them do.
Hmm.
Um, so it wouldn't be all that hard to make the World Day of Worship Sunday, and then that
Right.
would help save the environment. Because even if you're not worshiping a god, well, you can still take the day off, and the whole world shuts down, and Earth gets better, and the animals are happier.
Hmm.
But according to the Bible, at least as I read it, um, again, there's a reason it says remember the Sabbath and keep it holy, because they're going to
Yeah.
try and have everyone disobeying the commandments, and that climate change Sunday shutdown day is perfect for that, because I would
Okay.
not be allowed to worship on Saturday as well. That wouldn't be allowed. Same with anyone else who worships on a Saturday.
Okay. And I mean,
But
it
like you
shouldn't
said,
be
oh, go ahead.
dependent on the day. Like you should be able to, whatever day you think is correct, I think should be acceptable. Like
It
shouldn't be.
again, it depends. From my understanding of the Bible, it does matter.
Okay.
Um, but then again, the reason Sunday specifically is pushed is because it is generally and historically the day of worship for the pagan religions or the mysteries,
Okay.
the mystery Babylon. That the day that they tended to do their worshiping on anyways was Sunday. So that's
Hmm.
how when they started blending paganism into Christianity to form Catholicism, that's one of the things they did to bring in the will worship on Sunday. And it says in all of their works, all their writings, this was not deemed by God. We chose to make the Sabbath Sunday instead of Saturday.
Okay.
So,
Hmm.
but yeah, a lot of Protestants already go on Sunday, worship on Sunday. So it wouldn't be very hard to push. But that's going to
Okay.
get the first. In my perspective, I think it'll just be the first straining out of the people who are going to not be wanted when this new world order comes in.
Okay.
So anyone who holds a faith and believes so strongly they're willing to go to jail or worse for it, they don't want,
Right.
right? Because we're the types of people who are going to cause trouble.
Yeah. You're gonna stand up
So
for what you believe in.
yeah, the worldwide Sunday law would be a really easy way to just scoop out the first bunch,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But that's, that it all depends on who you're talking to and who you want to believe.
Right. Well, they want to do it the easiest way possible. Like
Yeah,
the least resistance.
yeah, yeah. We want to get the sheeple. We want masses to do what we want them to do so that we can get our one world order.
Yeah.
And that's what the Mystery Babylon right from the get-go, from the beginning of the pagan religions, the mysteries. That's been the goal, is
Okay.
control, world domination and control, and becoming God yourself.
Okay.
And to do that by any means necessary. So just
Right.
because they say they're a Jew, not all Jews, you can't say it's always the Jews. Just because they say they're Jewish doesn't mean they're actually Jewish. They may just be high up working in the Jewish church as a disguise to help the mysteries.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. That's what I keep trying to tell our friend is it's not all Jews are these evil one world order globalists. It's those people that follow the mysteries, the mystery Babylon religions, which turned into paganism, which turned into many other names. But those people are the ones who want the one world order. And those people will claim to be whatever they need to claim to be to make sure that the mysteries are the ruling party.
I assume you're talking about cheese.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say his name too many times because then he shows up. It's like Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
I don't want to get derailed. We're close.
We're very close. There's like 4
Yeah.
minutes. All right.
Yeah.
So we'll get this last 4 minutes in and then go from there. So.
Okay.
All right.
Down the Vatican in order to build up the Protestant church, for they are equally guilty. Protestantism has fractured the teachings of Christ into thousands of sects and cults and little groups, all of them professing to know the truth. None of them really do. The Holy Scriptures were almost unknown, not only to the people, but to the priests. God's law, the standard of righteousness in those days, having been removed, Papist leaders exercised power without limit and practiced vice without restraint. Fraud, avarice, and profligacy prevailed. Men shrank from no crime by which they could gain wealth or position. The palaces of popes and prelates were scenes of the vilest debauchery. Some of the reigning pontiffs were guilty of crimes so revolting that secular rulers endeavored to depose these dignitaries of the church as monsters too vile to be tolerated.
Sound familiar?
For centuries, Europe made no progress in learning, arts, or civilization. A moral and intellectual paralysis had fallen upon the world. The noon of the papacy, according to history, was the midnight of the world. Foremost among those who were called to lead the church from the darkness of popery into the light of a purer faith stood Martin Luther. And this is what people believe, but Martin Luther himself was an initiate of the mystery schools, a follower of the faith of Mystery Babylon, as was the Pope and the hierarchy of the Catholic Church. You see, but they were vying for rulership of the world, and up until not too long ago, have always been throughout history. For the Vatican practices the corrupted worship of Mystery Babylon, the combination of Christianity and the worship of Mystery Babylon, whereas the mystery schools retain the pure form of Mystery Babylon. And this is the only difference between the two, folks, and they have been vying throughout history for the rulership of the world. Mystery Babylon attempting to destroy the Pope and Christianity, and the Pope attempting to persecute and burn away the followers, the initiates of Mystery Babylon. And it has always been the goal of the worshippers of Mystery Babylon to seat one of their own upon the throne of the Vatican. And they have succeeded. They have succeeded, folks, and now you are seeing the beginning of the combination of all religions into one world religion. And while the world and the New Age movement may be waiting for the emergence of Maitreya, I tell you now here, and remember, that I have been the most accurate in making predictions about future world events than anyone in the history of the world, based upon study and knowledge, not psychic ability, not any gift given to me from God, although I am a messenger, I can assure you of that. I tell you that in the New World Order, the one world charismatic and religious leader will be seated upon the throne of Rome. Mark my words. And for those of you who do not understand yet, the Protestant religion was created by the mystery schools to bring down the authority of the Pope. Just as this nation, the United States of America, was created by the mystery schools to topple the monarchs, the kings and queens, from their thrones. You see, whatever you want to believe in, folks, is okay with me. Let's just believe from a position of knowing the truth. Good night, and God bless each and every one of you.
All right. So, yet again, there's a lot to unpack there. We're getting further in. So yeah, I don't I guess my biggest confusion right now is I thought the mysteries and maybe I messed up somewhere here, but I thought the mysteries in the Mystery of Babylon was like the evil portion of it, and it seems like it encompasses more than just the evil, terrible people trying to do bad things, which is my original.
It depends on whose perspective you're looking at it from.
Okay.
From a Christian perspective, then what they are doing is evil.
Okay.
And it is against God in every way. From the perspective of of the mysteries or paganism, and many of denominations that consider themselves Christian today, they're already, without being aware of it, absorbing the mysteries and the mystery religions into their Christianity. So without even being aware of it, they've been drawn into helping these mysteries. And that's what I was saying with, just because the guy is a Jew or a rabbi, per se, doesn't mean he really believes those things. He may just have raised himself to that position, got himself there in order to further the mysteries or paganism. So he'll claim to be a rabbi and all that entails, but in reality, he's not. He's a follower of paganism.
Okay. So let's think of it in the context of, so what kind of culpability or fault do they have if they don't know what they're doing? Doesn't that play into it?
Yeah. From my understanding of the Bible, you get judged on your heart, because that's God knows your heart. He knows every thought you've ever had or will have. He knows everything you've ever done or will do. At the end of the day, those people who never had a chance to be introduced to God or Jesus, never heard the 10 Commandments, if they lived a good life that followed the commandments, whether they'd heard of them or not, but followed those tenets, they will be in heaven.
Okay.
And there's going to be a lot of people who are Catholics or Baptist or Buddhist or Muslim that will be in heaven because they lived a righteous life. Whether they knew the truth is a different thing. It's a bigger deal to know the truth and not do it.
Mhm.
That's from a Christian's perspective. That's the bigger deal. You don't want to do that because that's what will send you to hell. But from a mysteries perspective, your goal is to become God or to become godlike, and you and the rest of those who follow the mysteries, your whole purpose in life is to attain godship and to help others also attain that godship, and to
It's
hell with
kind
everyone else.
yeah. Well, it's kind of like a current president who didn't know what he was doing, but apparently that you're not culpable if you don't know what you're doing. So,
I know it's depends. There's a gradient.
yeah.
But that's the thing. If you look back in history, you can really see, like Bill said tonight, Martin Luther, who was the beginning of Protestantism and trying to bring Christianity back to Christianity, so to speak. He was obviously a studier of the mysteries. He was a student of the mysteries. He knew how they worked. So who's to say he wasn't also fulfilling the mysteries just from his position,
Right.
as a supposed Protestant revive or reformer.
Well, obviously, power was important to, I mean,
Mhm.
it's. I feel like power is important to a lot of people, and power, influence, and I don't feel like that's a human characteristic. I think that personally, the "I don't give a damn, just don't mess with me" is much more of a human centric characteristic than "I need to be rich, powerful, and run the world." Personally, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong or naive with that, but it seems like a much more human condition to be. Uh, yeah, I don't
Self-reliant.
know. Yeah, just kind of like, that's cool. Just don't
Yeah.
screw with me, and we're good.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, that indifference, um, it's funny because that indifference, which it sounds like a bad word, indifference, but that's exactly how the Constitution was built.
mm,
It was built on the framework of the last six commandments, um, and with the uh, express saying that no matter what you choose to believe, no matter
mm,
which God you choose to follow or none, you have that free right. You just can't impose that on others. And that's
okay.
what makes you guys so amazing. I mean, I love being a Canadian, and I will never ever give up my Canuckhood. But you guys have got something that no one else has, and that is because your Constitution was built on the last six commandments, and those are all about loving yourself, loving your neighbor, helping each other. Don't steal, don't lie, don't murder. Which
Mm,
are basic things that a person knows. It's just like a basic instinct, I guess. What's right and wrong.
yeah, and
But
they
you
should
guys
be.
wrote it into the history of your country that you all have the free right to choose whichever God you want to favor.
Yeah, and it. Excuse me. It should be a value that's not so ridiculous to not be universal. Like it should be able to be a universal value that
Hmm.
I don't know. Just don't be.
I'll
just
leave
don't
you
be a
alone. You leave me
terrible
alone.
person. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Leave me the hell alone. Let me do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And we're all good.
Yeah. Right up.
But
Yeah. It sounds so easy, but there's also a large part of the population who prefer the power and the riches and the fame and the
yeah, I don't get it.
and well and a lot of those people, or at least people who follow and study the mysteries and are in agreement with them, they don't really care what happens to everyone else. It's all about getting them their godhood.
Yeah.
So everyone else is just fluff to be used in whatever manner is needed to get them where they need to be.
Yeah, and I think that it mimics the money and power and influence argument too. With they just have to. There has to be. I don't even know what it is, but there's this intrinsic to be this. I have to like. I have to step all over people and kind of be a piece of garbage to everybody to get what I want. And maybe it is the departure from religion or the context of religion. But it's becoming dominant, and it's becoming very, very difficult to contend with because it's just so many different areas and walks of life where it just becomes this thing where the power and the influence and the money and the all that is just primary, and everything else is to hell with it. Like, it's not even that it's secondary; it's just to hell with it. People don't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah. But
Um,
that's just as in there are people who may claim to be a Catholic or, a whatever. And in my opinion, from my perspective of the Bible, the Catholic belief system has some errors to it. But there are going to be a lot of Catholics that are still in heaven because their heart is pure and
yeah.
what truths they knew, they followed.
Mhm.
But in the reverse, there's a whole lot of people who aren't trying to become a god or to be like God, but it's a hell of a lot easier to just be out for yourself. You get a lot further in the world these days if you're looking out for number one and that's it.
Oh, a
Uh,
ton easier. I mean,
it's
it's significantly easier, and it's almost impossible if you're not being garbage.
mhm.
And I don't know. It's
So they're choosing the mystery, whether they know they're choosing it or not, just in the way that they live,
mhm.
in everything that they say and do and think and are. And in the same way, um, people who follow God's law, whether or not they know they're doing it, um, but act on what they know is right, that they're going to heaven. They'll be okay, even if they don't know the whole truth, all of the truths. Yeah.
I think one of the issues and one of the like so I try and be neutral or decent for the most part. But when somebody really just goes too far and becomes just a royal pain in the ass, I think one of my issues is I'm going to go out and take it upon myself to get retribution, but I like to see retribution. I think that's one of the disconnects that I have with the whole system is that yeah, they're not going to make it, but I don't know that, and that's putting.
And in
I
case
know
they
it's putting it
don't,
on
you want to
faith.
make sure that they get something here too in
Right.
this
I
life.
want them to burn in hell, literally. Like,
Yeah.
and
You want to make sure if I'm wrong and there isn't anything afterwards, that they do get some just or punishment at some
Right.
point.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the next go around, I mean, if there isn't, then like if there
Then
was
none of this
a
matters.
if there's another if there's a spaceship Earth 2.0 and we go through the same thing and I find them there, I'm gonna kick their ass and not think twice about it. So and I hope there's just one of these, systems or situations, because I'm not gonna buy it a second time, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I'm just
Yeah.
gonna take care of it. So
Yeah. Well,
um
and again, that's why I'm against the death penalty, but I am all for having when we talk about like prisons and max security prisons, and then the middle, and then the lower class. I think that people should be put in them as to their dangerousness level. But I
okay.
think in all aspects, in all tiers, it should be Gen Pop, because they're going to take care of each other. And
Yeah.
we know this. It's been proven throughout time in prison history that they sort themselves out. They take care of their own business. And those people who may be fans of the playground do not survive all that long in
Right.
Gen Pop because of that. And that is karma, which is just another way in my mind of saying that is God. You do good, and good things will happen. You do bad, and bad things will happen. So the bad guys will take care of themselves, each other,
Yeah.
and that way they get their judgment, they get their punishment here in this time as well.
Okay. Hmm. Yeah, I mean that brings up 19 hours of additional conversation, but um I'm I'm very anti. I don't know a better system, but I'm very anti jail. I think that when you take somebody's jail, prison, when I think when you take somebody's freedom, that's an issue. And I understand that there has to be some kind of system of
Mm-hmm.
checks and balances and protection of the innocent and so on and so forth. But I think when you literally lock somebody in a cage, that's a really shitty thing to do. So, um, and maybe it's just the fact that we do it too often anymore. Um,
For the
that
wrong
is my
reasons.
yeah, that might be my hang up with the situation. But yeah, I've never been a huge fan of throwing people in jail. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm okay with it in some ways, but again, yeah, it's a matter of it's being used too liberally in the wrong places.
yeah,
So, you're right, Bobby. Scandinavia does something right. See, Canada and my province of BC in particular, they're trying to do the same thing. The rehabilitate our prisoners and rehabilitate the drug addicts, but we went about it half-assed.
yeah,
So we legalized everything, all the crimes and all the drugs. We legalized everything, but we didn't give any treatments. We didn't give any way to learn how to rehab yourself.
right.
Scandinavia has a lot of programs that help you to learn a better way
Hmm.
of living. You know, so it's they're definitely doing some things right, for sure, Bobby.
Yeah, and
But
I think there are different ways to achieve stated goal, but
mhm,
yeah, I don't know. So
yeah, I think in some ways it was, like I said, it would be a lot fairer to just um, throw them all in the Gen Pop and let them sort each other out.
yeah,
You know, I don't want to have I don't want to be the reason for anyone's death. But I'm like you too. I don't think I'm wrong, but on the off chance that I am wrong, it would be nice to know that they get a little justice here too, or they see
Yeah.
their punishment. You know.
I
So
just think it would be nice to have some kind of retribution here as well as there. Like we can take care of both of them, you know.
yeah,
So, but yeah,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't think there's a like the reality is there's not a great answer for anything. Like everything's gonna have flaws and issues and concerns and
exactly.
all that good stuff. So
Yeah, and none
you
of
do
us
what
are
you
going to
can.
know until the end whether who's right or who's wrong. Or
Right.
so, yeah, you got to do the best you can, as the person you are in the time that you have,
Hmm.
and that's all any of us can do.
Yeah, I mean, you make the best you can with what you have, and try to be a decent person. So
Yeah, yeah, and that is a very boiled down and simplified version of Christianity.
okay.
Very boiled down because we're kind of forgetting the first four commandments altogether, but it's a great
One
way
at
to
a
form a
time.
country.
One at a time.
Yeah,
We'll work on the other ones later.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, if we could just get back to it's all the amendments and all the little addendums that we've added to these laws that have made it as bad as it is. Um, Once upon a time, our various Western countries had some pretty solid laws on the books, and when followed appropriately, worked.
Right.
But somewhere along the way, we've kind of fudged our way into the opposite, and it looks like we're starting to swing back a little. So, that's a good thing. Um, I know that it will only get worse until the end. But no matter how bad it gets, there's enough of us good people out there, call us whatever you want to call us.
Mhm.
Christians, non-Christians, believers, non-believers, whatever. There's enough good people out there um, to make it through to the end and make sure that there are still good people at the end.
Yeah.
You know, no matter
And
how bad things get, there are still good people out there, and we just have to keep clinging together.
I think one of the most important things is that you continue to keep good people around you and have positive benefit to things like that. So you gotta keep the good with the good and screw the bad guys. So
Yeah. Well, that's like whether you want to call it a religion or like a congregation or just a local community. Um, you need to have people in your immediate vicinity that you know and can trust and rely on.
yeah, like-minded people,
Yeah,
like valued people.
yeah, yeah. And
So
then, yeah, God or no God or whatever, that's debatable later. But at this point, we need to get all of us like-minded people um, standing up and pulling together because we can make change, and there is some change happening. We can see it. Some of this is rolling back. Doritos hiring that trans person who said wonderful stuff about young prepubescents. They got rid of them right away.
yeah,
So they saw that this was about to be a Dylan thing, and they said, "Oops, never mind." So the pendulum is coming back. Um,
right.
it'll never go all the way back, and we can't drop our guard, but it is coming back a bit, and that's because people of like mind are coming together and speaking, and that's why free speech is being attacked so heavily right now, because that's the only way that they can stop us from stopping them is by stopping us from talking to each other and seeing that we're all out there and we outnumber them hugely.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's I think that's a good thing to think about. But all right,
Linda's
I am
right.
going. Oh,
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead.
I'll just say quickly, Linda's right. Not everyone who claims to be a Christian is a good person, and there are a heck of a lot of good people out there who are not Christians, who claim no religion.
Yeah,
So, and that's why it comes down to God knowing your heart.
yeah. With that, I have to be up so freaking early in the morning that I'm going to bed.
Okay.
So,
No worries.
I'm gonna, but as always, I appreciate the show. I thought it was a damn
Thank
good
you.
show, and
And thank you,
sorry,
chat.
yeah, sorry, chat, that it's been, a couple days. In reality programming, no, I'm not gonna get to the Biden thing because I have to be, I seriously have to leave like ass early in the morning. So, or the
Yeah, the primaries.
primary thing. So I will do something tomorrow when I get home. So I'll be out of town tomorrow, but when I get home,
Cool.
I'll throw probably just to throw a video up. Probably be best. So but
Then you can
until
nap in the
then,
background.
yeah. But until then,
Bye, everyone.
thank you all for watching. It's good to see you all. And thank you, Digger. And
Anytime.
until next time, ladies and gentlemen, y'all have a good night, and we'll see you soon. Take care, y'all.